Medigroup Physician Services presents Medigroup's Frank's Fast Five with Healthcare Executives, produced by Bridget Wilson and Carrie Peters. Today's guest is Bob McCart, Vice President, National Accounts for IMCO. Now here's your host, Medigroup's Frank Gillespie.
Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Medigroup's Frank's Fast Five. Today, I have the special honor of talking with an executive that I've had the pleasure to work alongside with in a previous couple of lives, and also someone who I consider a very good friend and a very special person. Bob McCart is here from IMCO. Bob is the Vice President, National Accounts for IMCO. Bob, it's an honor and welcome.
And Frank, same back to you all. It's an honor to be invited to do this. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Gosh, I think I met you in 1993, so we go way back, and you have been an awesome friend and just a great mentor and somebody I've really looked up to over the years. So again, it's an honor to have you here today.
Yes, Frank. And yes, when we first met, we were doing an RFP together.
Yes.
And it was one I didn't win.
And you're still talking to me.
And we did an exit interview of what could I have done differently, which helped me through the rest of my time in this industry. Thank you.
You're very kind. Thank you for all you do as well. Thank you, Bob. Well, I promise you I wouldn't waste your questions. Let's just jump right into them here. I'm anxious to get your feedback on some of these things. So, Bob, could you share a bit about your experience in the healthcare industry? You know, various roles you've had up until today.
So, Frank, first of all, I'm not going to give you too many years because I'm seasoned and we won't go there on the number of years. But I will tell you, about a year out of college, I started selling medical supplies for a physician distributor down in Dallas, Park Plaza Medical. And I was with them for several years. And then myself and two other sales reps ended up doing an internal buyout, and we bought the company. So that was in 1985. We owned the company, and at that time, I actually joined IMCO as a member and served on their board.
Okay.
We did very well in St. Louis and Kansas City as a local distributor company. I actually competed myself personally against Andy that you work for today. But it was friendly competition. We had accounts on the Illinois side that we shared and or competed against each other, but it was good competition.
Awesome.
In 1992, we were approached by PSS and other companies, and we sold the company to PSS in 1992, and I stayed on with them for 21 years. And I always say, once I became drinking age at 21, I had learned enough, because that's when McKesson bought PSS.
Okay, right.
And during those years at PSS, gosh, the jobs. I was branch manager for the St. Louis and Kansas City office, moved from there into national accounts, which was when I met you,
Yes.
with the negotiations we did, because the department that I oversaw ended up being vice president of national accounts. We handled our GPO relationships. Once we got into ASCs, I handled that. Urgent cares, oh my gosh, all the different entities that popped up, all the way to where doctors, so many of them were bought by the acute care systems.
Sure.
My department handled the negotiations with the acute care hospitals.
Wow.
So, just different experiences that I had through all of those 21 years. But when McKesson bought PSS, I decided to take a different avenue, and ended up not even knowing it was going to happen back at IMCO. I will be here for 10 years, August 1, with IMCO, VP of National Accounts, handling their GPO relationships and many other duties that they've assigned.
That's unbelievable. 10 years. I can't believe you've been there that long. And what a great.
I didn't expect that long, but
yeah. Well,
we're still on a roll and doing well.
That's fantastic. That's good to know. And I had the blessing and the pleasure to work for you at PSS. And so that was a great time in my career. It was the first time on the other side of the desk from the GPO world. I was facing the GPO world. So you taught me a lot, and I still learn from you today, Bob. Great experience and great background. Thanks for sharing that.
You bet.
So, Bob, so our viewers know, and this will refresh for me as well, what is an independent medical distributor association, and how is that different from a traditional med-surg distributor?
So there's so many things that are the same, but obviously there's stuff that's different. First of all, IMCO, advertisement, we've been in business for 42 years. I remember when I came over here, people go, the Nationals, they're going to own the world. And, they are definitely needed in our industry and they do an outstanding job. But there's a place for independent distributors. And, we have 138 independent distributors with 162 locations. Most all of them are family owned. A lot of them are second and third generation. They're local in certain cities and our regional areas. Decisions are made locally. And so what we call it, the independent distributor network that we make up is more like Main Street versus Wall Street.
Okay.
Because the national companies being publicly traded companies
Sure.
versus the local independent distributors who are privately held.
Got it. That's a great.
So, that's who we are. Some other things about us, we do over $4 billion in sales volume.
Oh my goodness.
So what does the association of all of us together do? It's that buying power and the vendors that IMCO negotiates with on behalf of all of our distributors to get that group pricing for our members to help them be more competitive out in the total world of the nationals and the independents working together on a lot of the same accounts. We also do marketing for them. Collaboration is huge because most of our distributors do not compete against each other. So when we have our meetings and we have our advisory consuls and our convention, they all talk amongst each other and they all realize they all have the same challenges,
Sure.
but they share solutions of what they do in one city compared to another. And it's great collaboration between all of them. And then the last thing is we do a lot of education and training for our members.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I learned when I was working for PSS is really that, and then learned through you, is it's similar to a GPO in the sense that your members are those distributors. On my side of the table today, my members are those end users, those physician practices or surgery centers, et cetera. So different audiences, but we facilitate some of the same types of things for our various members across the country. And
that is correct.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, thank you for that. And I appreciate that. And I think that'll be helpful for our viewers to kind of understand some of the differences. So, Bob, are there any new practices you're seeing happening from a procurement standpoint within the non-acute care space today?
So non-acute, I thought about that. And the thing that's really changed, and you're talking about, what's changed in the acute care world, right?
Right.
Or non-acute.
Non-acute, right.
When COVID hit,
Yes.
so many things changed.
Yep.
And one of the big things that we saw was the mindset of the acute care accounts, because many of them were sole source with one particular national distributor.
Okay.
So COVID comes along, allocation comes along, shortages come along, and acute care sites that own so many non-acutes. And to jump over to one little point here, how many do they own? Some people say it's 60% that they own. Some say today it's grown to 70%. But whether it's 60-40 or 70-30, first of all, that 40-30% still a lot of offices.
Absolutely.
That are independent, that being independent is just like our independent distributors. So there's a connection there. And many of them use our independent distributors for their services they need for med-surg supplies. But on the acute care side, again, they used to be, or a lot of them still are sole source. I mean, some of them are the owners of the GPO. So they're shareholders and they buy from authorized distributors and they do, have relationships with the nationals. But many of them during COVID reached out to our independent distributors as a secondary source for supply that they couldn't get from the national distributors because everybody was on allocation and it was based on what you bought the prior year. So we were another avenue to help those acute care systems with supplies they needed for their non-acute care sites. And
Interesting.
that's continued till today. It's still going on.
Really, not to
Yes.
the same level, not to the same impact, but it's still going on as a result of the larger impact
Correct.
of it. Okay.
Because they want different options. First of all, they appreciated what our distributors did during COVID. Second of all, they want more than one choice. God forbid anything like that happens now in the future,
Absolutely.
whenever.
Right.
So those relationships have been established. Another thing that you're not going to be surprised, I don't think the listeners will be surprised, the online presence.
Yes.
So online, actually, during COVID, was another blessing for our independent distributors because many of them do have an online presence for their local and or regional coverage that they have.
Makes sense.
And IMCO has actually gotten involved in that to where we have an online specialist employed where we help them, with their presence online, their website, search engine optimization, all of those new to me terminologies of, what is this online world, which fits straightly into what's changing in the non-acute space of all the new buyers and the younger buyers used to doing what everybody does today online.
Right. Right.
So the online presence is huge for our independent distributors, and it's here to stay. And the old story of being an order taker doesn't work anymore. Our distributor reps have to be experts in the aisle
Yes.
and know a lot about problem solving and the products that are available. But physically taking an order anymore or standing in front of a Joe or Mary at a doctor's office doesn't happen as much.
I
So
can understand that. Yeah, especially
and
with the alternatives that they have, like online, like you said.
so those two things are the ones that I think are most the bigger changes in non-acute compared to a lot of the things that are still the same.
Makes perfect sense, Bob, and I appreciate that explanation. And just wait till they add AI into this, the artificial intelligence. I mean,
Oh my
that'll
gosh.
be a whole different discussion. So,
Exactly.
be a new learning curve that'll probably be beyond my time, but we'll see.
Exactly.
So, Bob, how have the experiences you've had working in the GPO world positively influenced your approach to your current role?
So interesting when I decided, to exit Right from McKesson, which is a great company, but
Yes,
decided to try something different.
sure.
So I come back to IMCO and I'm thinking, okay, I'm here. The main reason was because of the GPO relationships that I had established through all of the years.
Right.
And, I sat back and said to myself, if I had to do it differently, how would I do it? And one of the first things that crossed my mind was friends like you. And I say that because number one, you are a true friend. And those of us that have been in the industry a long time know that to stay in this industry a long time, which really is a small group of people,
It is.
You have to work with people you believe and trust in.
Absolutely.
And I decided there were companies that I really enjoyed working with and others maybe not quite as much.
Sure.
So the ones I reached out to were the ones that I knew were great partners. So that experience helped me decide how to lead IMCO deeper into the GPO world. The other thing from my past is I'll call it the tricks of the trade. Maybe tricks doesn't sound like a politically correct word, but understanding the whole GPO negotiations of how it works, negotiating a contract, but also understanding, what the national players have in place
Absolutely.
versus an independent distributor that never sat at that table before.
Right.
Because we negotiate with the GPOs on behalf of all of our members. So that's helped. And again, I had mentioned the relationships with all of the different people and all the GPOs. But something I didn't really realize was how many smaller independent distributors didn't understand how GPOs work. So the joy of helping them and their local reps understand the process is very rewarding. So that's what's kept me in this for all the years I've been doing this. because it is a complicated process if you don't understand it.
Absolutely.
But helping people and how grateful they are in the independent world is very rewarding.
Well, and you're the perfect mentor for that. And again, I mentioned in the beginning, you're a mentor and have been a mentor for me. I've learned a ton of stuff from you. And for you to be able to share that with your other members, you're doing like a GPO does. You're educating your members, you're helping your members, you're there as a partner for your member. It's not really a competition against the member. It's how do you help them? How do you help them grow and to be their partner as you move forward? And what a better, couldn't find a better person than you to do that from a mentoring standpoint. No question.
Thanks, Frank.
Absolutely. So Bob, I promised you we would again waste your time. We're up to the last question. So I have to ask, what is your favorite hobby and what do you like to do for fun, Bob?
Frank, when you ask that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have any hobbies. But then and I think it's because we live in such a fast-paced healthcare world. It's 8 a.m. and then 2 seconds later, it's 5 or 6 at night.
Absolutely.
But I stepped back and thought about it. And I do have a hobby.
Okay.
That I don't do every day, but I remember and actually went back and looked at what I have. My dad used to collect stamps and coins.
Okay. Wow.
But the way he did it was we'd get mail and he would cut off the stamp.
Okay.
Or he was a shoe repairman and we had the shoe store with, back then everybody paid in cash and you'd get the coins and he'd always look through the coins and look for one with a really cool date, an old date.
Right.
So I remember back in 1985, I got a mailing from a company called PCS, Postal Commemorative Stamps. So I actually have been collecting stamps and coins since 1985.
Wow, you should have
and
a collection. You've been doing that as a side job there.
Yeah, and it's very cool because you get the stamp or you get the coin, and it comes on a cardboard sealed container, and it has a whole story about the stamp of the artist that made it and all the different pieces that go with it, along with, when they came out with the state quarters and all the different things they came out with. So I have a whole collection of those that goes back to 1985.
That's very interesting, Bob. I didn't know that about you, and I've known you for a long time. Very cool.
Yeah. And then one other thing, because you said a hobby or what do you do for fun?
Yes.
And I like to close with, is this fun or not? I was surprised right before COVID when my wife told me we were going to move out in the country. So we bought 10 acres of land, and it is actually very refreshing, but can be hard work. But it's not an Excel spreadsheet. It's not contract negotiation. It's not problem solving. It's just being out in the open air in the country and developing the 10 acres we have. I'm not going to tell you I'm a farmer. Because all I think we have 20 chickens and 3 golden doodles.
I love it.
But there won't be like a whole field of chickens and cows or cows and all the other stuff that people farm with.
But I totally get it. You can get on that big riding lawnmower or that tractor and put on your straw hat or your regular ball cap and just enjoy the wind and the sun and
you got that right.
Ponder what's next in life. That's
exactly.
Awesome. That is awesome. Well, Bob, again, thank you so much. This is an honor, a pleasure. It's great to see you. We haven't talked in a while. And so thanks for making the time for us today. And let's stay in touch. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
You bet, Frank. And thanks again for the invite.
You are most welcome. Thank you, sir.
This has been MediGroup's Frank's Fast 5 with Healthcare Executives, produced by Bridget Wilson and Carrie Peters, and hosted by Frank Gillespie. Special thanks to Bob McCart, Vice President, National Accounts for IMCO. This has been a presentation of MediGroup Physician Services.